Okay, welcome to our Erev Shabbat Parashat, class Parashat Vayikra, but more importantly, Hodesh, Nissan, and Mashiach. Wow. So we're going to forego this week a Parashat discussion, as we did last week, but even more so. Last week we spent time on talking about Parashat HaChodesh specifically, and this week we're not really going to address any reading with which we'll be engaging tomorrow on Shabbat. Rather, we're going to recognize the time period in which we just entered yesterday, which is Hodesh Nisan. B'Nisan nich'alu u'b'Nisan atidin lehigael. That's a statement that is probably in the last 3 days the most popularly used statement in synagogues throughout planet Earth by rabbis and other people. And it's because it's exciting, it's because it's true that in the month of Nisan, Am Yisrael will first redeemed, and the month of Nisan, with Hashem's help, is the month they will be redeemed. But I'd like to analyze that, and I'd like to speak about this relationship between the month of Nisan and Mashiach coming soon in our days, based on various sources that we have. And the truth is, I alluded to this already in last week's discussion in Parashat Hodesh, when we quoted the pasuk Hodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim rishon hu lachem, the Hoshea Hashanah. We of course took notice of the redundancy, so to speak, in the pasuk rishon hu lachem. Again, the pasuk says this month Nisan will be the first for you of the months of the year. And there we pointed out the Or HaHaim's comment is that not only is it, as we thoroughly fleshed out last week in that discussion, is it a unique start, so to speak, of a year, an anniversary commemoration that's only for Am Yisrael, as opposed to the commemoration of the creation of the world for the rest of the nations, and therefore it's Rishon Hu Lachem. This is only your first month, Am Yisrael, no one else's, but also it's Rishon Hu Lachem, it's the first for you, in that it will eventually be your month of redemption. And this is why you are here. So based on that, it's almost like we're going to segue from last Friday to this one. And I think begin with the pasuk that started it all of the framing of the historical redemption of the Jewish people. Where's that pasuk? That pasuk is in Parashat Bo. Actually, you could have taken it out. We put back the Hamashim already. That's okay. It's a famous pasuk in Parashat Bo. It's right after Makat Bechorot, right after Am Yisrael are already taking one step out of Mitzrayim. The Torah framed the event with what I call a three-pronged pasuk. The pasuk is in Perek Yud Bet. It's a large chapter, pasuk Mem Bet, chapter 12, verse 42. And the pasuk says as follows: Leil Shemurim Hu Ladonai Lohosiam Me'eres Mitzrayim, is a guarded night to take them out of Egypt. Hu Halayla Hazeh Ladonai, this is the night of God. Shemurim Lechol Bnei Yisrael Dorotam, it's a guarded night for all generations for the Jewish people. And I read it in just the way I'm going to explain it, in three prongs, three segments. Those three segments refer to the past, the present, and the future, as is God's existence. Leil Shemuri Himula Hashem. It's a night that was guarded. What does that mean? So Achamim tell us that from Biriyat Ha'olam, this day, the night of redemption, was already guarded, meaning that Kadosh Baruch Hu, whoever it was going to be, had already, when he created the world, made as his objective that some people, maybe all the people, would eventually be redeemed, and the purpose of the world would be fulfilled by bringing us into some sort of redemptive time period. And that's Leil Shemurim. Until Yetziat Mitzrayim occurred, this night God had it in the bag. He didn't take it out of the bag yet, right? It ended up being the Jewish people, the children of Abraham, and it ended up being Egypt, right? But that's just those are just details, right? The fact that that night, it was the 14th of Nisan, was actually engaged in, was activated, that was the night God was waiting for from the beginning of creation. That's the past. Hu halayla hazeh ladonai. This is the night of God. Spoke about this in my Purim presentation in class. That night became the night of redemption throughout the course of history, the 14th of Nisan. Many historical, incredible, miraculous events of salvation to Am Yisrael. Halayla, the identified night, 14th night of Nisan. From that time, even actually from before that time of Yetziat Mitzrayim, I won't go into all the details and examples now, through history. That's the present segment of the pasuk, right? Haya, Hoveh, was, is, and Shimurim lechol b'nei Yisrael adorotam. Last segment of the pasuk is the future. Shimurim, it will be guarded for all generations for Bnei Israel. What does that refer to? That refers to the line, the sentence, saying the adage that I quoted a couple of minutes ago. And that is, in Nisan, they were redeemed, they will be redeemed. In other words, that will be a night of redemption, or at least a month, or a time period of redemption. Shemurim, it's also guarded, right? Because God has not yet fulfilled his complete objective just because you were redeemed in the beginning. It's waiting for the bookend to come full circle and full redemption. Okay, that's where this idea of Nisan and salvation all starts in the Torah itself. But it's very interesting when you talk about Nisan, and of course we say the word Nisan, as I mentioned in last week's class, the word Nisan, Hachamim tell us these names of months were taken from Paras, from the Persian Empire, and they're not original, right, usages or ways of identifying the months. Really, it's the first month, Hodesh Harishon. Yeah, but we're calling it Nisan because that's the way we adopted. Those are the names that we adopted, more than 2,000 years ago, and we continue to identify the months that way. This idea of the month of Nisan being the month of redemption, the month of Mashiach, the messianic time of Geulah Shilema, is not unanimous. We know that there's a famous Gemara, it's a Beraita quoted in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, and I say famous because it really is, Mahloket. It's an argument between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer holds that B'Tishri Nivra Ha'olam. Tishri, which is Rosh Hashanah, the world was created, and in that same month, the Avot were born, passed away, other things happen, and at the end, he says that B'Nisan Nig'alu, I got to admit, Nisan, they were redeemed, that's black and white in the Torah, Yetziat Mitzrayim first time around, right? But Yetziat Mitzrayim 2.0 will not be in Nisan. B'Tishri Atidim Lehigael. The future redemption, Messianic times will be officially kicked in the month of Tishri. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. On the other hand, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, B'Nisan Nivra Ha'olam. Nisan, Rosh Hashanah. He says it's in Nisan. And that's when the Avot were born and passed away, and a number of other examples. And then he ends with the statement with which we began. B'Nisan Nichalu. No one can argue with the fact that the Jewish people were first redeemed from Egypt in the month of Nisan. Or B'Nisan Atidim Lehigael. The Messianic redemption time will officially be ushered in Nisan. So if you look at the way we react to this mahloket, historically, Am Yisrael, is that we took both sides. Isn't that what we did? Because on one hand, we take the Rabbi Eliezer's position, B'Tishri Nivra Ha'olam. In the month of Tishri, the world was created. How they both know this, how they both learn to extrapolate this from Pesukim, different discussion. But we follow, of course, on our calendar, the first of Tishri is Rosh Hashanah. Now, we can't help but follow the pasuk, which tells us that on the seventh month, and the first day, will be a Yom Teruah. The Torah doesn't tell us that it's the anniversary of the creation of the world. But in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, in the second Mishnah, apparently Torah Shebe'al Peh, as history went on, sided with Rabbi Eliezer. And we did as well, right? And we recognize Tishri Rosh Hashanah as the anniversary of the creation of the world. Well, on the other hand, as we know, we're leading up to this holy holiday of Passover, that we follow Rabbi Yeshua's position in terms of not just when we were redeemed, because we're celebrating, everyone agrees, Pesach on Nissan, but Nissan Atidim Legael. What do you mean we follow that, we adopt that? It's basically become the position of Am Yisrael. And there are many sources that indicate this, many practices that we have, and in fact, prayers that we have that indicate that this indeed is the month of redemption, this month of Nisan. So how do we do that? We took a real head-to-head dispute and we divided it in half. What I'd like to prove, and this is really the main point of this class, to support the concept that Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, if we can say Kiviyachol, pivoted. He made a move. He changed lanes. He created the world. He was on a trajectory, and he made a right turn. In other words, wherein all of creation, including the universe and subsequently mankind, all in Tishri, Rosh Hashanah, and then the month of redemption, the objective for which the world was created, ended up landing on a different day, which is not that different than our discussion from Parashat Hodesh last week. But let's try to play this out with a few sources that I believe really support this idea and explain why we took both sides of an argument. With Rosh Hashanah and the anniversary of the creation celebrated Rosh Hashanah and Tishri, and the anticipation and belief and faith of the future redemption, Nisan. So the Gemara Masechet Pesachim. The Gemara said that 6 items were created before the world. There's a list also in Pesachim of 10 items that created in twilight and Ben Hashemashot. They have a list of 7 items created prior to the world, and here they are. And I'm not going to go through the conceptual appropriateness of each one. I'm just reading the list. Torah, Teshuvah, it's repentance. Gan Eden, number 3. Gehinam, number 4. They go together. Kisei HaKavod, God's throne, honorable throne. Bet HaMikdash, Ushmo Shel Mashiach, and the name or the identity of the Mashiach, created before the world. Whenever you hear a statement of something that preceded the world, quote unquote, it refers to objective, purpose. In other words, God created the universe with purpose, with goals, and those here on this list are indeed his goals. These other similar statements in Hazal with the same spirit of things. And here, one on the list of 7 is the name, the identity of Mashiach. Does that mean God shows who? I mean, the person who's going to be Mashiach is a real person who made with it through his free will reached greatness. So God didn't force him to be it, but there's some concept about the identity of Mashiach preceding the world, but that really refers to the idea that it's for the eventual redemption of certain people who will earn it on their own, for which God created the world. That's his end game. And so what do you see? You see that Mashiach was born when? He was born in creation, meaning that Hodesh Tishri was not just a month according to Rabbi Eliezer and what we observe, that it's the anniversary of creation, but originally Rabbi Eliezer was on the right side of the argument, right? Mashiach created, so to speak, his identity or his purpose or his end goal by creation as well. So whenever you speak of creation happening, according to this, you have to speak of the first, seeds of Mashiach being planted as well. And there you have it. Now, of course, Rabbi Yeshua also agrees that creation and Mashiach start at the same time. He just says it's Nisan, right? Now, we have another fascinating source that I found. It's in Bereshit Rabbah, the Midrash. The Midrash, quoting Resh Lakish, quotes a pasuk, which is basically the second pasuk of the Torah. Veruach בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ, והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו, ורוח על פני תהום, וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחבת על פני המים. And the wind, the Spirit of God, was hovering on the waters, whatever that means. Says the Midrash, Zo Ruho Shel Melech HaMashiach. This Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God that was hovering over the waters, is the Spirit of Melech HaMashiach. Look at that. And when is this? This is pre-creation, right? This is Tohu Vabohu time. It's too deep for us to even understand this. But the conceptual goal in this midrash is to point out to us, again, the same spirit as the Gemara Pesachim that I quoted, that this idea of Mashiach, this spirit of Mashiach, this eventual end goal and objective of redemption was already there. It existed, so to speak. It pre-existed the world. It was a precursor to creation. It was the world's contingency plan, God's contingency plan of creating the world with this eventuality in mind for those who earn it to be able to bask in the presence of God and be able to experience the most fulfilling and pleasurable experience and earn this reward, which will be kicked off and activated in the times of Mashiach. It's the objective of creation. All right. So it's very supportive of this idea that creation and Mashiach have to match each other. The anniversary, at least the commemoration of them, because that was the original intent. And then we have a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, which I believe is a Tosefta. And first, it quotes a pasuk, which is in last week's parasha. Vahi b'chodesh harishon, b'shana hashenit, b'echad ha'chodesh hukam hamishkan. And it was so that in the desert, in the first month of the second year, that's Nissan, in the first day of the month, right, the Mishkan was erected. We read it last week's parasha, and Moshe Rabbeinu oversaw that. Tana, the Tanaim learned from that pasuk, Oto Yom. What's Oto Yom? This can't be argued with. Oto Yom is the first day of the first month. That's Nisan. Natal Asara Atarot. That day was crowned with 10 crowns. And it names the 10 crowns. And one of the 10 crowns is it names the one that we know from the Torah for the Nisi'im and Avodah, serving God, the fire coming down, the Korbanot starting. And one of them is Rishon Shekhinah, right? God's presence, right? Rishon Levarech Yisrael, and Rishon HaChodashim. Rishon HaChodashim. That day, Nisan earned something, as if to say that that day there was some type of change made. In other words, that Nisan, it's not the time period that earned something, it's the people found in that time or place. We're contextualizing it, but symbolically awarding it, so to speak, to Nisan and saying all of a sudden things changed. That day, the day where the chosen nation started in a formal, official way, serving God the way it was meant to be after Yetziat Mitzrayim, and then we reverted and came back and retrieved the status of God and the Shekhinah, the divine presence, finally was returned or came back, and then we start, and that day became a first. That's the pivot. That's where the original intent, so to speak, of creation and redemption matching each other, when the world went wrong, when mankind blew it, when God gave from Adam to Avraham Avinu plenty of time for mankind to get the point and to be able to become the chosen people. Who I ask my students in school once a year, who was supposed to be the chosen people when God created the world? The answer is, drum roll, everybody. God's not biased. Right? God's not discriminate, right? Everybody, why not? Why not? And everyone had free will, and everyone could have. We could have seized the moment of existence to make God proud It didn't work out that way. Lucky for us, we had some darn good forefathers, and it happened, right? But because things, so to speak, took a turn for us for the better, right? And some people, through their free will, seized the moment and fulfilled God's wills and the objectives of creation of mankind. Because of that, God decided to commemorate that. And now all of a sudden, that package deal that mankind was supposed to receive, redemption, which includes Mashiach, Hayat Mitim, Olam Haba, all of that is now being served on a silver platter, just a few people and their descendants. Let's commemorate that with a special date, shall we? Now let's separate Mashiach from Biryat HaOlam. No longer will the anniversary of the creation of the world and the potential anniversary or target date of Messianic times share a calendar date or calendar page, even on the Bet Torah calendar. No, they will be separate. It'll be identified, like we explained last week on Parashat Hodesh. A separate anniversary will be made. It'll be so distinct, as we explained, that it will be as far as you can go from the anniversary of the creation of the world, right? Which is in the seventh month, the first day. The furthest away from that you can possibly get on both sides of the calendar is the first day of the first month, exactly 6 months later. That's where the split happened by Yisiat Mitzrayim, by the official formal choosing of this holy nation. And therefore, I cap it off with a wonderful saying from Masechet Sofrim, not officially tractate of Talmud Yerushalmi or Bavli, a later authoring of laws that emanated from Amoraim. I won't go too much more into this, but Masechet Sofrim, which a lot of our laws of prayer come from as well, says as follows: וכן לעתיד לבוא עתיד המקדש להיבנות בניסן. לכן מה שנאמר אין כה חדש תחת השמש. Says Masechet Sofrim, and there's something else that will happen in Nisan. The Beit HaMikdash will be built. We ask why Nisan, no Tahanunim. The Bet Yosef Maran Rabbi Yosef Karo explains, okay, you have the 12 days, 12 Nisi'im, then you have Erev Pesach, and you have Pesach. It's most of the month. Okay, make it the whole month. But there are those who point to other sources like this source and say, no, part of this month is also a future celebration. And indeed, there are other sources that I didn't bring here that indicate that Mashiach possibly will come on Yom Tov, maybe even the last day of Yom Tov. That's this whole movement about the eighth day, which is the diaspora day of Yom Tov, so to speak, last day of Pesach, being the celebration of Mashiach, and only the 7 days of Miluim, so to speak, which then fill in and follow that great event, will be at the end of the month of Nisan, not to interrupt. And Ma'arivim Simcha B'Simcha, the celebration of the holiday. And that rounds off the entire month with significant historical days, albeit one futuristic. And that's what this Masechet Sofrim was referring to. The Beit HaMikdash, God has carved out in the month of Nisan a time for building the Beit HaMikdash, our future Mishkan. And just like our previous one was built, our future one will be designated. It makes a lot of sense to be built also in the month of Nisan. And thus, we do in fact follow Rabbi Eliezer in the celebration of Rosh Hashanah as the anniversary of Biryat HaOlam, the creation of the world. We share that celebration with the world. However, we follow Rabbi Yosef, and we split decision, right? With his prediction that Benisan Atitim Lehigael, in Nisan we will be redeemed. Not only what was it back in Yisrael time, but it will be our month, our days of the kickoff of Messianic times, of our full redemption, our Geulah Shlema, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, made a decision. He pivoted, changed lanes, and he made Am Yisrael, the chosen people, gave them their own special time, and Nisan became the distinct month, along with Tishri, but on its own as the month that stands for our future redemption of Mashiach, שיבוא במהרה בימינו, אמן. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. שבת שלום.